Should every player play in youth basketball? That's a contentious issue, and I'm starting to wonder if we're asking the wrong question. So, when I coached high school, I played every player. You know, as long as players came to practice, they played. And I determined my starting lineup based on practice performance, you know, because I did what I call the competitive culture, which I got from Anson Dorrance at University of North Carolina, and that's how I chose my starting lineup. And I played everyone. It worked. I liked it. Now, in youth leagues, I know some players get away with there's a mandatory play rule, so they don't go to practice. So in youth leagues, I see, you know, let's say we have 10 players on a team in a 32-minute game. Everybody plays equally. That means we're getting 16 minutes of game time. And the rest of the time, players are just sitting on the bench, you know, doing what young children will do when having to sit around for 8 straight minutes or 4 straight minutes, depending on how the league, you know, coordinates the mandatory playing time rules. Why don't we just have more teams and play a 16-minute game, let players show up, you know, do their warm-ups, whatever, play a 16-minute game, go home. Why keep them there for the extra 16 minutes that they know for sure they're not going to play? You know, why are we stuck in a paradigm that it has to be done? We have to have teams, we have to have 10 players on a team, et cetera, et cetera. Practices can only be with one team. We can't have two teams show up at a practice. So if, you know, if we're going to say, you know, we're going to do a 16-minute game, everybody just plays the whole game. You know, so that means we only have 5 people at practice. We can't really do much. But why can't we just practice with another team? You know, a lot of youth leagues, teams are reduced to, you know, 1 hour of practice on one half court. Well, if I practiced with another team, now I could have, you know, a full court, or maybe I have 2 hours of practice instead of 1 hour practice. So I think there's different ways that we can get around the playing time issue, whether it is a mandatory rule or whether it is a coach who's, you know, only playing his 6 or 7 best players, and, you know, 4 or 5 players at the end of the bench never get into a game. So then we put in a mandatory play rule. But I think we're stuck looking at things just from one angle instead of asking other questions. Well, how can we construct a league differently that we don't have to worry about a mandatory play rule? How can we construct a league differently where players get more time on the court to play and less time just sitting on the bench watching other people play? How can we get more practice time when the league has a limited allotment of time? You know, why not have more players or more teams at a single practice so that team players and teams can practice more than once instead of just having one time to practice? I think those who run youth leagues and youth coaches, you know, who I know are trying to do their best, I think we need to look beyond the simple answers and looking at teams in the same way that we look at, you know, a high school team or a college team or a professional team, and think, you know, how can we do things differently based on our goals? You know, what are our goals? To get more touches for players, to get more playing time for players to have more fun, you know, maybe to have players exposed to more coaches. I think these are all beneficial things, and these are all things that I thought about when creating the Playmakers Development League. And again, it's based on small-sided games, so it's a lot different than a typical youth league, and I know a lot of parents and coaches aren't in favor of just playing 3-on-3 games instead of 5-on-5 games. But I think the same ideas and the same questions that I asked can be used to rethink how we're going to use a 5-on-5 league when development is our goal. And I think anytime we're putting in a mandatory play rule, we're suggesting that development is our primary goal for that league. So again, let's look past just a mandatory play rule. It's not that it's a bad thing, but let's see if there's other ways that we can engage more children, get them more touches, get them more playing time, and less time just sitting on the bench and less time sitting around, you know, watching other people play.